After nearly 6,000 years of domestication, the 20th century brought radical changes to the world of the horse. Today, instead of being a beast of burden, the modern horse enjoys a major role in recreation and organized competition. In our next story, we'll learn about an astonishing new role for our old friend, the horse. A few miles north of Akron in Bath, Ohio, Petie heads out for his ritual early morning romp. He's one of 9 special resident horses donated to the Victory Gallop Therapeutic Riding Stables, a farm nestled in the rolling hills of the Ohio countryside. Sue Miller, one of the founders and co-directors of the therapeutic riding program, provides a safe refuge for children who are struggling with a variety of challenges.
We deal with children with depression, compulsive behaviors, anxiety disorders. We deal with a lot of foster children who have been physically or sexually abused. And then we also deal with children with learning disabilities, some mild forms of autism.
Along with Sue, Kim Burno co-directs the riding program.
We thought we'd specialize our program more to work with children with emotional and behavior challenges and then life-threatening illnesses.
But despite the healing work being done at Victory Gallop, Sue and Kim felt the need to do more. What about the children who were too sick to come to them?
My husband and my brother-in-law, David Miller and Richard Miller, dressed up in a horse costume. And we would go to Rainbow's Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland, and we would go room to room on the oncology floor. And they would act really silly, and we would read stories and do horsey things and gallop into the rooms and give rides to the kids in this costume. And we kept saying how phenomenal it would be if we could come across a pony that we could actually take into the hospitals.
It suddenly occurred to Sue that Petie might be a candidate for the job. Richard Miller, former horse impersonator and a regular volunteer at the stables, became his handler.
He was brought to the farm, and he was this cool little guy. He was pretty well known to have a really nice disposition, just didn't know how exceptional he was.
Here around the farm, he is constantly in trouble. He escapes daily in the summer and goes to my neighbor's house and cleans out their bird feeders and then lays in their backyard and suns. He's constantly out in the pasture grabbing horses' ears and grabbing their noses and hanging on.
Sometimes you try to bathe him and he'll plant his feet, and you got to yank him and push him from behind.
Even though Petie was a little prankster, Sue, Kim, and Richard sensed that there was something special about him.
Kim and I fell in love with him, brought him home, and contacted Akron Children's Hospital and started to work with the volunteer office on trying to get Pete in the hospital.
It didn't take long for Brenda Angioni, Director of Volunteer Services, to be won over. But first, she had to convince hospital administrators.
I went to my boss and I said, Don, I have this great idea. What do you think if we bring a pony into the hospital? And he said, well, Brenda, next you'll be asking me for birds and cats, and who knows where it'll end.
Despite initial reluctance, the idea was given the green light, and Project Petie took its first tentative steps.
Come on up and say hello.
Hi, Polly.
We had high hopes that it would work, and we were pretty confident, but only he could be the determiner.
We want to sit there for a couple seconds and pet him? That's okay.
His gentle nature just sold people.
Before, huh? Remember how we get him so shaped?
Did you think you'd see a horse today?
Everybody just fell in love with him.
And that's just what happened when 3-year-old Sierra Jacobson met Petie for the first time. She was at the hospital undergoing her rigorous therapy sessions. Sierra's mom, Kim, remembers that day.
Here was this pony at the hospital, and I couldn't believe it, and her eyes lit up. And it was just, it was wonderful. She loved him.
And seeing Sierra happy was a rare event for Kim. Only 3 years old, her child had endured 3 open-heart surgeries. Unbelievably, her first operation was when she was only 5 days old.
We first found out that Sierra had a heart defect when I was about 3 months pregnant. When she was born, they had a team from Children's Hospital waiting, and they took her immediately. Well, they called me about an hour later and said that her defect was so bad that they really needed me to come there. They told us about her defect, which is called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and it basically means she didn't have a left ventricle, and the remaining part of her left heart was so small and underdeveloped that it really wasn't there. Your world just comes crashing down and you think, you know, here's this child that's not going to have a chance to live a full life. But I can remember on the way home talking to my mom and just crying and saying, you know, I planned for this baby and now I feel like I'm planning for a funeral. And that's what I felt like, that I was preparing myself for this ending.
Sierra's first 2 surgeries were a success, but in the aftermath of the 3rd surgery, Kim noticed that something was terribly wrong.
Then the 3rd day post-op, they went to get her up, and we got her out of bed and we started to walk her along the hallway. While her whole left side, she was just dragging her foot, her arm was just limp.
Tragically, Sierra had suffered a severe stroke.
I blamed myself because I had always stayed with Sierra every night in the hospital. I never left her. And the night before that we found this out was the one time I had ever left her.
Against tremendous odds, Sierra began her long, painful recovery. That's when she met Petie, and her life changed.